friends. Welcome to episode 1 of Revealing the Unknown. I am your host, Frankie Adeo, and I will be bringing you accounts of dark history, stories, urban legends, conspiracy theories, the paranormal, and real events of all things questioned and questionable. If that's your shit, well then this is the show for you. Join me as we take a trip down some of the most thought-provoking, strange, and bizarre rabbit holes into the unknown. I don't want you to miss any of our new content coming up in 2025, so be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all our Parasite Experiences social media platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Enough talking, let's get into today's topic. The hysteria of UFOs. So, full disclosure, I will never claim on any of these topics or content that you see on Revealing the Unknown as an expert. I don't think anybody is experts out there. We're just people with knowledge and experiences in certain topics and situations. UFOs never really been my thing. I believe in UFOs. I believe in life outside of our planet, outside of our galaxy, our universe. It's kind of narcissistic to think that we are the only things that exist. And if that's the case, that's kind of sad that we, humanity, are the only things that exist in the universe. I don't believe that. There's got to be something else out there. All this show is providing is people information where they can do their own research, jump down their own rabbit holes. And a big reason why I want to do this as the first show is because if you've been living under a rock, if you don't troll social media, if you don't watch the 24-hour news cycle, then you do not know what's going on and you're missing it. You will know that there has been this hysteria that's been going on for months over mysterious drones flying over residential areas across the United States and even overseas with farms, especially along the coastline of the Jersey Shore where I live. If you go out there at night, you will see neighbors with cameras, video equipment, telescopes, hoping to see a glimpse of this bizarre event that's going on. I've seen it myself. The only way that I can describe it is they do look like drones to me. I've seen drones before. They will be in clusters. They will move pretty frequently and pretty quickly. They will move on a dime, which is not like conventional aircraft that we know of in technology. And they will have different colored lights. So it does mimic something that we may see from another part of the galaxy, light years far beyond our own capabilities. And the only thing that I can describe them as is I cannot confirm if they're drones. I cannot confirm if they're military aircraft. I can't even confirm that it is UFOs. It does cause a lot of excitement when you do see them. With all of these reports, many people are saying that it is government military operations, a secret project. But then there's another big growing part of these eyewitnesses that think that these drones are coming from other planets in the galaxy, letting us know that there is life beyond this planet Earth. Now, in no way am I a ufologist, UFO or alien expert. Don't think anybody's an expert when it comes to stuff like this. All I'm doing is jumping down a rabbit hole after everything that we've seen in the news, all the conspiracy, all the questions, and taking a little bit of why we get so infatuated and cause these mass hysterias over things like UFOs. So jump down your own rabbit holes, do your research. I'm going to give you some basic information that you can expound on. Let me know in the comments what you found, if you found these things to be true, or if you found new information. Would love to hear it from you guys. So let's start by talking about what is a UFO. A UFO stands for unidentified flying objects, and it is often described as an unexplained object in the sky, specifically those that some believe are alien spacecraft. You may also be hearing now lately the term UAP. The acronym stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon, which in December of 2022, the Pentagon updated its terminology from UFO to UAPs to encompass submerged and transmedium objects. Another theory of that is because of all the concerns and to temper down hysteria and fear, the US government, along with NASA, decided to change UFO to unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP, branding change, so this way you don't know what is going on. So why are humans so infatuated with the thought of UFOs? Because UFOs aren't new. They actually have been described by humans over millennia with descriptions of disc-like objects and unusual atmospheric objects found in the art of literature and ancient civilizations, from the Sumerians to the Egyptians to the Greeks and the Romans. But the modern era of UFOs took off in the middle of the 20th century, right around the time rockets and high-tech aircraft were being devised, often in secret. Coincidence? Paranoia? So when was the very first sighting of a UFO? In March of 1639, near present-day Boston, a gentleman by the name of James Everell and two of his companions were rowing a boat up the muddy river at night. They saw in the night sky a large light that hovered between the boat and Charleston. It flamed up and was about 3 yards square, and then it stood still. Then it contracted into the shape of a pig when it ran as fast as an arrow shooting towards Charleston. On June 24th, 1947, the civilian pilot Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 objects glowing bright blue and white flying in a V formation over Washington's Mount Rainier. He estimated that the object's flight speed would be at about 1,700 miles an hour and compared their motion to a saucer if you skip it across the water. But in newspaper reports, Arnold's sighting was described as mistakenly taken to mean that the objects were shaped like saucers, leading to the popularization of the term flying saucer as a synonym for UFO. We can't talk about ufology and the history of ufology and UFO sightings if we don't talk about the brilliant mind that was behind the birth of ufology, often considered the godfather of ufology, J. Allen Hynek. He was an American astronomer and a consultant to the Air Force. He also was a professor at Ohio State University, and his intentions when he started out working in ufology was with the intention to debunk UFOs and wanted to kind of attribute it to Cold War concerns at the time. But then he quickly changed to the foremost sought after ufologist and columnist. He also was an author, wrote a bunch of books about ufology. But in the beginning, he often got into disagreements with his employers, which was the US government, because they wanted him to debunk, not cause a panic with the public. He was one of the minds behind the infamous Project Blue Book, that there is actually a great series on the History Channel, 2 seasons of Project Blue Book. Definitely check it out. I'll put the link in the description below. He also was a consultant and appeared in Steven Spielberg's classic Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Speaking of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, one of my favorite movies, J. Allen Hynek was the person that created our criteria or categorization of UFO interactions with humans. They are listed as close encounters of the first kind, which are sightings where the UFO, whatever it appears, comes near enough to a witness, typically within about 500 feet, that details of the UFO can be readily observed. There is no interaction with the witness or the environment. Close encounters of the second kind are sightings where the UFO causes an effect on the environment or the witnesses or animals. This can vary from marks on the ground or damaged vegetation to interference with electronic equipment, vehicles, or mobile phones, to burns or ill health for witnesses. These sightings have been the most important because there was evidence that could be studied after the event. Close encounters of the third kind are encounters where sightings of an entity of some type, whatever the appearance was, seen in or near a UFO, Often the UFO landed, and sometimes there was also an effect on the witness, such as paralysis. We also know that there are two additional categories that Hynek came up with regarding close encounters, and that's close encounter of the fourth kind, where sightings are witnesses' reports being taken against their will into a UFO, or at least removed from their normal environment to somewhere else. The witness may undergo examinations and sometimes be given information. This category was added in later years to separate abduction reports from close encounters of the third kind. Then the last of the encounters is close encounters of the fifth kind. Probably the most fascinating to me, because it's ongoing communication exchange between humans and non-Earth creatures. If you've experienced any of these, I would love to hear from you. Send me a message, leave comments in the description below. Find it fascinating. I am a believer of when people tell me their experiences until otherwise proven not. Can't talk about UFOs unless we talk about government and how our government or governments around the world take on the issue of UFOs and the public's concerns about UFOs or wanting information. I find it very coincidental that all of our spikes in modern day UFO reporting started in the mid to late 40s. Specifically with spikes happening in 1947. That was the same year that the Cold War started. So I have a theory that maybe using all these claims and reports about UFOs was a way for government to temper down fears of the outbreak of war with Russia. Maybe some of this stuff was brought up initially to distract people from the onset of possible war. But what do you think? So in my research, I found so much information, so many rabbit holes that I would love to go down in future episodes. So if I don't go into specific details in some of these secret projects and books and figures, I'm going to probably do it in later episodes and give that sole episode to the attention of that topic, just because I find that it's going to need jumping down a deeper rabbit hole in some of these topics. What I found interesting is there are so many different secret bases and airfields and auxiliary fields all over the country with odd shaped diagrams in the soil, in the grass, in the sand, almost to communicating with somebody that it's okay for them to come or their safety. In 1941, a UFO crashed in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and consultants to the U.S. government on UFOs at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, specifically a gentleman by the name of Leonard Stringfield, wrote an official report in 1991 to state that he had information on an eyewitness account of a UFO crash in 1941. That witness was Charlotte Mann, whose grandfather was Reverend Huffman. Reverend Huffman was called in by police to a crash site in 1941 to pray over the victims. But unbeknownst to him, it wasn't an airplane crash. It was a UFO crash. There was a disc-shaped object and the bay doors were open, and he could see silver interior, a cockpit, controls, and what looked like to be hieroglyphics. He saw 3 non-human bodies scattered outside of the spacecraft that looked like typical alien descriptions, about 4 feet high, no bone structure, small eyes, long arms and fingers, and a big head. He was told not to discuss this at any point to anyone, not even his family or his friends, that it was top secret government information, and that he can be charged with a criminal offense if found that he was spreading this secret information. The next big incident, which a lot of people know about it, even if you don't have a lot of UFO ufology information or follow ufology, but that would be the Roswell incident. The Roswell incident even led to what we know now as the top secret Area 51, which was and still is fueled by conspiracy that the US government uses Area 51 for top secret cover-ups such as alien activity. These theories have been part of our pop culture for a very long time, influencing movies like Independence Day and TV shows like The X-Files. So I mentioned before briefly when we were talking about J. Allen Hynek, Project Blue Book. So back in the early 40s, when we started, or the government started to hear about chatter about UFOs or life from other planets and communications and intergalactic travel from our friends in other galaxies, they started to develop these projects, secret projects, to look into the credibility of what was going on in the realm of UFOs. So started out with a Project Sign, that quickly kind of faded out, turned into Project Grudge, which picked up some steam to kind of throw people off their track because some of these projects started to kind of get into the mainstream. They came up with Project Blue Book. So Project Blue Book started in 1948 and was a secret project that was composed of scientists, airspace engineers, astrologists, people from NASA, all kinds of areas in science to come together as to figure out what was going. Now, again, these projects were initiated not to only find out if UFOs, life from other intergalactic planetary systems, was true. It also was to help temper down the fears that were being stoked in the media and going around the globe that people were concerned about UFO invasion. What's interesting about Project Blue Book is the government closed Project Blue Book in 1969, stating there was no credible evidence to support continued research and investigations into UFOs. But there was over 12,618 reports that were filed between 1947 to 1969 during the operation of Project Blue Book. Sounds like evidence to me. The shade. The government would even go as far as to making fun of people who came out as witnesses to some of these intergalactic UFO sightings and experiences, abductions. They would criticize them in the media, stigmatize them, blow them off as, having mental health issues, seeing things that really weren't there. However, other foreign governments have a different perspective of UFOs than we do. They actually take their constituents and their citizens seriously. They will often ask them to participate in research with groups that handle UFOs in situations like this. France is one of them. They have the CNES, which is the equivalent to NASA, that focuses on things like UFO reporting, sightings, experiences, abductions. They were so groundbreaking that they would bring together minds in science and collaborations with people from weather experts to psychologists to soil experts to aviation experts. There are, however, some U.S. government groundbreakers that I would like to mention. One of them is John Podesta. He asked for investigations that the public could handle the truth and did not need to be hidden from the truth, that we were able to process the information, that it wouldn't stoke fear into the public. Harry Reid, who did a lot of work in Congress regarding UFOs and interactions that people have had with alien life forces and communications. And then he passed that legacy on to Kirsten Gillibrand, who still today in Congress fights for budgets to be applied for projects that can bring in constituents and people in our country who have experienced these types of incidences, so we can do more research into what's out there, the credibility of this whole thing. I do want to talk about a very interesting public figure in the United States regarding UFO reports and history. That would be Fife Symington, who was the governor of Arizona. The reason why that's important is because we're going to be talking about some of the major sightings on a mass level that have happened in our history, and we can't talk about sightings, UFO sightings on a mass level, if we don't speak about of the lights of Phoenix. So Governor of Arizona at the time, Fife Symington, got tons of reports after this mass sighting. In a frenzy, they did a press conference about the situation back in 1997, where Governor Symington basically made fun of people who saw this or claiming to see this mass sighting of UFO activity. He even went as far as to mock the people that were reporting it, and also had a person dressed as an alien in an alien costume with an alien head, who was one of his staff members, to show that there was almost a comedic lens that was being looked at through the US government. Again, stoking stigma, ostracizing people who were reporting what they saw in Phoenix. But later on, years later, the governor of Arizona quickly changed his mind and said that he apologized, he backtracked for that press conference for mocking people, and wanted to come out to say that he actually witnessed the lights in Arizona sighting himself, and he totally thought that it was something beyond our human expectations, our human knowledge, that it was extraterrestrial and deserved to be investigated and research done, because we were being communicated by individuals from another planet. In 2007, he actually moderated a panel and summit in Washington of the greatest minds in science, military, and aviation that had witnessed actual UFO activity. They all came together as a collaborative to testify that these events were in fact true. I mean, we're talking about top level security, military pilots and staff members, as well as commercial pilots, private pilots. It was more slanted to aviation safety than anything else, because that's what they felt that the governments would attract to the fastest if it was proposed as aviation risks or safety issues in our airspace. So this way, not only cargo, but people, passengers, safety and aircraft safety was being looked at, but really revolving around UFO activity. There is also, as a conspiracy theorist, you have to read this book, Behold a Pale Horse, which was written by ex-secret military Milton William Bill Cooper. He is kind of like one of the biggest U.S. government conspiracy theorists. Cooper was once part of the U.S. Naval Intelligence Briefing Team. In his highly read book, Behold a Pale Horse, Cooper wrote about UFOs and the cover-ups in the U.S. government. He claimed to have seen secret documents outlining U.S. government interactions with ETs and UFOs. He wrote about being one of the several crewmen on the USS Tiru in 1966 that seen an object coming out of the water like a large football field. It would repeatedly go in and out of the water. He proceeded to expose the U.S. government and their cover-up, speaking against the government for decades. In Cooper's infamous book, Behold a Pale Horse, he detailed names, agency, and his top-level secret access to information regarding UFOs in the U.S. government. He tied entities like the Illuminati to UFO interactions. The government made unsuccessful attempts to silence Cooper and ultimately led to his death in 2001. We will go down a rabbit hole with Behold a Pale Horse and Cooper's book in another episode. It is that good. I'll put the link in the description below. Read the book. It's on audio. Great, fascinating. Pick it up anytime that there are some conspiracy theories like these UFOs and drones that have mysteriously popped up. It becomes relevant to today and is fascinating when you think about when the book was written in comparison to what's going on sometimes in today's society. Love it. I read it, pick it up. It's like Encyclopedia Britannica of conspiracy theories. Check it out. Now, what I found fascinating in doing some of this research and going down a lot of these rabbit holes on UFOs is the amount of actual top level military and high ranking military status pilots within the Air Force and Secret Service that have had experiences with UFOs that have been documented, the books, the secret books of the government. So we're going to kind of go through some of them. Some of them, we're just going to touch upon them very briefly. So a lot of people remember, because it's been recent, the release of what's called the infamous Tic Tac event of 2004. Over 2 weeks in November 2004, the ships and planes of the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group detected brief glimpses of unknown objects dozens of times off of the Southern California coast. Commander David Fravor, Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, aviators aboard 2 separate F-18s encountered a strange craft with astounding capability. 19 years later, one of those Navy Top Gun pilots told his story at a public hearing before Congress. It's not a bird. It's not a weather balloon. It had no wings. It had no rotors. The 4 of us will to this day tell you that we have no idea what we saw as far as where it was from or what it was. But it had incredible performance characteristics that were well beyond brand new Super Hornets right out of the factory, which were the jets we were flying. There are also hundreds of commercial airline pilots who have reported to the FAA sightings of UFO activity. The FAA would not take reports and advise pilots not to talk about their experiences. The Pentagon would tell them and report any findings or experiences to civilian groups only. Japan airline pilot Captain Kenji Terauchi in 1986 reported live interaction with a UFO over Anchorage, Alaska during his voyage from Paris to Tokyo. Flight control asked the pilot to adjust his heading so the plane would pass south of Fort Yukon and Fairbanks. Terauchi reported seeing 3 objects he described as 2 small ships and the mothership, which was several times bigger than the plane. These unknown entities would follow his plane with curiosity. Terauchi would say that these entities would follow his plane with curiosity. They would turn on a dime, they would speed up, slow down, not like anything our conventional planes or aircrafts at that time would be able to do. It was then corroborated by radar images and live radio communications with Terauchi and tower control in Alaska. And that's how they were able to corroborate that this probably did happen because of the live radio reports that were going on, plus looking at the radars to kind of line everything up. In 1976, Iranian pilot Tarani Jafri reported while up in a flight, he chased down a UFO. That this UFO spacecraft would, again, turn on a dime, move in unconventional methods, vertically, horizontally, not like a plane would. And then he actually tried shooting it down. But when he went to go shoot it down, his electronics shut down temporarily, so he wasn't able to shoot it until the spacecraft went out of distance and left his airspace. Then all the controls came back on, and by then he wasn't able to shoot it down or attempt to shoot it because the aircraft mysteriously disappeared. In 1980, Peruvian pilot Oscar Santamaria also saw a UFO while he was in flight. Just like the Iranian pilot Joffrey did, he attempted to shoot down the unknown object. He set off like an impressive range of bullets towards this object. Instead of the bullets hitting the object, it was almost as if the object absorbed the bullets and then disappeared. These are the type of testimonies that were discussed in the 2007 press conference of commercial pilots, military pilots, scientists, and aviation experts in Washington, D.C. Now let's talk some actual sightings that were documented. Now we're not just talking individual people who've seen these experiences with possible UFOs, alien aircraft. What are mass sightings that caused some of the hysteria of the times when these sightings were taking place. They're unexplained to this day. No reasonable explanation from U.S. government or officials or aviation scientists, NASA. Shade, the shade of it all. One of the most infamous U.S. sightings would be the Hudson Valley UFO wave, which some call the Westchester Boomerang, which happened between March 1983 to the summer of 1984. As many as 7,000 sightings. Yes, 7,000 sightings. The most popular one that's discussed in the Hudson Valley, March 4th, 1983. Throughout the evening, residents of Westchester County and the western side of Fairfield County, Connecticut, reported an immense V-shaped formation of lights that seemed to take special interest in the Hudson River, the reservoir, part of New York City's water supply, and the Indian Point nuclear power plant. The Federal Aviation Administration could not confirm any of these sightings. Some reports would later be cleared as hoaxes, including a group of pilots out of Stormville intentionally flying small planes in formation to mimic the appearance of a larger craft, outfitting the planes with multicolored lights, turned on and off on cue, completed the illusion of enormous UFOs. Residents reported seeing objects about the size of an American football field, usually in a V shape or circle, according to the New York Times. Absolutely noiseless and outlined in brilliant lights of white, red, or green. The objects were also described as being able to shoot straight up in the sky and hover in the air for extended periods of time. Between November 1989 and March 1990, all over Belgium, UFOs were spotted in the sky by thousands of people in what became known as the Belgium UFO wave. These sightings captured the imagination and skepticism of the public and experts alike. But what exactly did they see in the sky? An alien aircraft, a helicopter, or as one man claimed, a piece of polystyrene with torches glued to it? Now, we talked about this one earlier. I mentioned it a bunch because it is one of the biggest sightings. On March 13th, 1997, thousands of witnesses described seeing what appeared to be a huge carpenter square-shaped UFO containing 5 spherical lights. There were 2 distinct events involved in the incident: a triangular formation of lights seen to pass over the state, and a series of stationary lights seen in the Phoenix area. They reported seeing a cluster of reddish-orange lights disappear over the southern horizon. Shortly afterward, there were reports of lights seen over Prescott Valley, Arizona. Tim Lay and his wife, Bobby, his son Hal, and his grandson, Damien Turnridge, first saw the lights when they were about 65 miles away from them. In 2006, at O'Hare Airport in Chicago, Illinois, pilots and ground crew all witnessed disc-shaped objects at about 1,000 feet hovering over the airport. Witnesses claimed that the aircraft went straight up and caused a hole in the cloud. United Airlines hid the reports and sightings. United and FAA tried to cover up by saying it was the runway lights reflecting off the clouds, but reports show at the time of the sightings, the runway lights weren't even on. Then they said it was a weather anomaly called a hole punch cloud. Meteorologists define a hole punch cloud happening below freezing temperatures, but at the time of the incident at O'Hare Airport, the weather was reported as above freezing at 50 degrees, therefore negating the possibility of a hole punch cloud. On July 19, 1952, at the Washington National Airport, now the Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport, air traffic controllers spotted 7 unidentified flying objects in the sky southwest of the nation's capital. The controller, Edward Nugent, asked colleagues to double check what he was seeing. They confirmed the equipment was working properly and what they could see was not following a typical flight pattern. Not long after, the controllers could see other bright objects hovering over the White House, then occupied by President Harry S. Truman, and the Capitol building. Fighter jets were scrambled from nearby Newcastle Air Force Base in Delaware in the pre-dawn hours of July 20th, 1952. But the UFOs disappeared from the radar and from sight when the fighter jets arrived over the city. When a lack of fuel forced the jets to return to Delaware, the radar detected UFOs again, leading the air traffic controllers to believe that the mysterious aircrafts could intercept and understand radio traffic. By daybreak, the objects were no longer visible on radar or by eye. The following weekend, the strange phenomenon happened again. Around 8 p.m. on the evening of July 26, a pilot and flight attendant on a plane bound for the airport noticed strange lights above the aircraft. Again, fighter jets raced from Delaware to Washington, and air traffic controllers could see numerous unidentified objects across the radar. That night, one of the fighter pilots saw the strange lights and attempted to chase them. But this aircraft was no match for the speed of the UFOs and ended his pursuit. After 2 consecutive weekends of UFO activity over the city, President Truman asked to be briefed by a representative from Project Blue Book, the Air Force's new program for documenting and studying reported UFO sightings. Specifically, Project Blue Book wanted to determine if they were legitimate claims. Fascinating. So, guys, you can dig more into these phenomenal mass sightings. This is why there is hysteria around something like, or a fascination or a fixation about something like this, because it's based in secrecy. So the government will always keep secret from the public things that they feel we cannot process, comprehend on a mass level, on a macro level. They shouldn't be making that decision. We as the public should. I think by now people would be open to the possibility of space travel, communications from beings from other galaxies, other planets. This is not 2001 Space Odyssey, guys. We're living in almost 2025, modern technology, AI, nuclear weapons, and spacecraft, SpaceX, all this stuff. Why wouldn't we think that there are other forms of life, beings from other planets, intergalactic space travel? Again, that's that narcissism, that we know everything, that we are the best, we have all the technology. I would love for there to be some type of interaction with beings maybe from another planet. I know that sounds hokey, but they may have the answers to things that we don't. Things like diseases and technology and saving the planet. There's a lot of stuff that we probably can gain from a healthy, fruitful conversation with people. But then again, as humans, conversation generally is just not our fucking thing. We have to talk about not only our obsession as humans, as humanity's obsession with space beings and aliens and UFOs, whatever you want to call them. Hollywood is obsessed with our fascination with UFOs, UAPs, aliens, life from other galaxies. Most are familiar with the movie Close Encounters of a Third Kind by Steven Spielberg. We talked about it before. One of my favorite movies, starring greats like Richard Dreyfuss and Terry Garr. The film depicts the story of a gentleman by the name of Roy Neary, an everyday blue-collar worker in Indiana whose life is changed after an encounter with an unidentified flying object. And it's also about single mother whose 3-year-old son was actually abducted by a UFO. We have the infamous War of the Worlds. I'm talking about the original, guys. I'm not talking about the remakes and the Tom Cruise version. I'm talking about the 1938 radio drama War of the Worlds by Orson Welles that caused a national panic when listeners mistook it for a real news report. The broadcast on October 30th, 1938, Welles directed and narrated a live adaptation of H.G. Wells' 1898 novel, The War of the Worlds. As part of the radio series, The Mercury Theater on the Air, the broadcast actually included simulated breaking news bulletins, actors portraying reporters and government officials, realistic sound effects. It caused a panic. The broadcast caused some listeners to flee their homes, believing a Martian invasion was taking place. The panic was largely due to confusion from listeners who turned in late and missed the introduction, which clarified that the broadcast was a work of fiction. But the aftermath Wells was unaware of all the chaos he caused and created, and later said he had no intention to deceive his audience. The broadcast did boost his acting career, though, which culminated in the 1941 film Citizen Kane. The scale of the panic, however, is disputed, as the program had relatively few listeners. Some say that the reports of mass hysteria were greatly exaggerated. If there's anybody out there from that time or knows of anybody from that time that has experienced or listened or witnessed live, I would love to hear from them. I know that's a pretty long time ago, but there are some dinosaurs still out there. So, but there's tons of information. I'm going to also link some videos and images and stuff in the description below that I'm not adding to the video here. And that's basically episode 1 of Revealing the Unknown. I hope you guys liked it. Let me know if anybody has any footage or experience any of these mysterious drones that are appearing all over the place in our neighborhoods. And yeah, so UFOs, guys. Are they here? Are they not here? Is it military projects, secret projects that we're not aware of as civilians? Or is it actually communications? Or is it just a drone phenomenon? You know, some people are also saying that one drone takes off and everybody who has a drone takes off. But here in especially in New Jersey, you have to have clearance and register your drone to be flown. Does that always happen? No. Is the government going to come down and shoot every drone that is not registered? But it's interesting. And that's the reason why I wanted to do this episode, is because I'm fascinated by the human psyche and what triggers us to become fascinated in areas and subjects and topics and events that kind of consume everything. Again, you got to be living under a rock these days if you're not hearing the situation with the drones. Like, comment, subscribe. I want you guys to watch all the episodes of Revealing the Unknown. We're going to have some awesome topics. Again, we're going to go into deeper detail of some of the known figures in this episode, just because ufology is so massive and there's so much information and history out there that stumbling down a rabbit hole is super easy and you can get lost. So there are little pieces that I have found that I kind of want to do full episodes on, like certain figures like Jane Allen Hynek, Project Blue Book, some of the more top secret stuff that is surrounding UFOs and alien life. Also going to go down a rabbit hole of the book Behold the Pale Horse. I think you guys would find it fascinating if you're into conspiracy theories. So you definitely want to follow, subscribe to all of our social media platforms so you can stay in the know about all of our great new upcoming content that's coming out. In addition to what we do best, which is paranormal research here at the Parasite Experience, we also want to bring you some fun stuff too, some neat content that we think that you guys would enjoy. So in addition to Revealing the Unknown, we're going to have paracasts like the 6 questions. We're going to have a tech review called the Tech Corner of information and reviews of technology that you can put in your toolkits. We're going to have an urban exploration series called The Lost Explorers. And we're also going to have a book club that's coming up in January of 2025, The Skeleton Crew, hosted by Allison Hoff. And yeah, so tons of stuff happening here at Parasite that we're excited for in 2025. Going to be bringing you not only this new fresh content, but investigations from locations that we love, new locations, theories, new kind of ways of doing the work in paranormal research, and pulling back some of the layers even more still at our residency location, the Haunted Ritz Theater in Haddon Township, New Jersey. So guys, super excited if you can't tell about the upcoming new year. So hey friends, welcome to episode 1 of Revealing the Unknown. I hope everyone has a happy holiday season, happy new year, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.